Okay, let's just get to it. Oh, jeez. Yeah. The technical stuff today, I mean, as always, I'm a mess with my technical things. And we might watch a little bit more of Già nella notte densa. And I think, yeah, I think I have my sound working.
My hair looks good. Yeah. And I'm the smartest guy in the room, as always.
No, not quite, because today we have a guest. So I'm gonna have to not be the smartest guy in the room. We have Tony Linke. This guy, who's supposed to be really loud there. But it's for some reason really quiet. Like I said, technical difficulties today. So yeah, and it's always because of a new thing. And the new thing today is that I have I could always write on the screen, right? But now I can do these kinds of titles. I'll just put like chiaroscuro like this. And yeah, and I tried to program it so I could actually put that where I want it. Chiaroscuro. But today how I'm gonna use it obviously is going like this. Tony Linke. And I guess I'll put it right there, somewhere nice and favorable to Tony.
Beautiful.
What do you think of that?
I like it. By the way, how's my volume?
Say something. Say something more.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2. Hang on, and let's. Why are these? Oh, yeah, the chats always show up on top. I'm gonna have to fix that. I'm gonna have to rearrange how I do my chats, I guess. But I guess let's put you like there. That looks pretty good. Yeah. And then, yeah, I gotta. Now we kind of look like little voice teacher sickles. There. On the on the Corellis. So it's a Corellis with voice teacher sickles. Anyway. Yeah, this is getting weird. So I had to get Tony on the show today because Tony lambasted me. Well, it wasn't a serious lambasting or anything, but it was well deserved. Tony was not impressed with my phonetics the other day when I was reading some Manuel Garcia. So I thought I would... Oh, jeez, there's that again. I thought I would bring up our school thing here. And then now I've gone and moved Tony over again. And we'll bring the passage from Garcia back, and we're gonna get Tony's I guess better take. Well, let's see. I think it's gonna be a better take because on top of being like an expert on all this screaming and stuff, Tony's really big on phonetics and knows a whole bunch about it. So we've got some of his, we can call this semi-original materials, I guess.
Yeah, it's an extension of the official international phonetic alphabet.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at Tony's extension of the international phonetic alphabet, and he's going to explain how that works. Both of us are professional teachers, although he's much more professional when it comes to phonetics, obviously. And you can get in touch with me if you're interested in voice lessons or coaching in operatic technique at the real Mr. Opera at gmail.com. And then what have I done here? Looks like I started playing something. Sorry, guys. There's just a million things. Wait, let me stop this. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I was trying to do... Jeez. Yeah, so what I was trying to do was... oh, God. Not this. I wasn't trying to do that. But okay. This isn't going well. It's like the MIDI. It's MIDI stuff. I swear. Okay, anyway, you can contact me at therealmropera@gmail.com, or just watch my stuff, and then you don't have to bother me. And Tony, where can people get in touch with you if they're not totally done with both of us at the end of this?
They can get in touch with me either on social media, where they can look up for themselves what profile names I have.
Okay, yeah.
It's usually Tony Link or Tony Link Music, or on my website, tony-linker.com, where you can also find my email address, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and as you can tell, you better be someone who, I don't know, who's willing to take charge if you're going to work with Tony Link, because you're going to have to look him up by yourself. Okay, so shall we first get your take on the actual passage from Garcia, and then, not that yours isn't an actual thing, these are all actual things. And by the way, I found the word twang in this text.
Interesting.
In just the previous, so let me back up real quick because my ADHD demands it. We had this section that we went over where he talked about, let's see, it was...
I saw nasal twang.
Mechanism of the consonants, yeah. And in mechanism of the consonants, he talks about... that was the section
one later,
on,
I think.
sorry. Yeah, he talks about the nasal vowels needing nasal twang.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think it would be a good idea to find the original French now, because this is a translation, and see what is the word he's actually using. And then I'd like to know, how does it get to be the word twang here?
Twang.
Twang, yeah. I know they have nasar and they have nasal in French. These two words talking about similar sounds. And I saw one French voice teacher saying nasar is the twang one, and nasal is nasality.
Interesting.
It's one of the organ stops on the organ. Nazar.
Or as the Americans would say, nasared.
Nasared, yeah. So, do you want mechanism of the vowels too, or just consonant, or should we just do consonants?
I think just the consonant stuff.
Or okay, and wait, because we have the whole. Let's see, yeah. This is so. What about elements of words?
Well,
or do you want just what we just?
I can just quickly say what I would defined as elements of words from, like, I'm not a phonetics expert, but I studied this
Right.
thing a couple years ago. So it's like, if we want to analyze just the sounds, not even the intentions of like which sounds do we want to produce, how do we realize them, but just if we have a recording or if we see a vocal track or whatever, what do we hear, what do we see? Then we're talking about phones, not even phonemes, but phones. So if I do you hear that?
No.
Okay, if I do, you
Yes.
hear that?
Yes.
Yeah. So the other one
I mean,
was
I
too
can
quiet.
get my
but
headphones. Do I need my headphones for this one? I can get
No,
the
not
headphones.
necessarily.
No, okay.
The audience should hear it too. But any sound I could make, even like,
Okay. Yeah.
or, that is a phone.
Okay.
Now, if I have an intention there, if it's like, okay, let me realize 5 cardinal vowels or whatever we want to call them. That this is not a phonetic concept really, as far as I know. But like, let me realize a, e, I, o, u, just those letters. Then I could have different ways of doing that. I could just say a, e, I, o, u, and that would be roughly corresponding to how the International Phonetic Alphabet defines certain vowel shapes. So
Okay.
the symbols for those would be a bit different than the letters that we use like on our usual keyboards. But those would correspond to those. But then if I add nasality, for example, because I tend to speak nasally, a, e, I, o, u, that's already not the same phones anymore. You could make a point that I'm going for the same phonemes and then I'm
Right.
varying them. And then you could indicate that by a nasality diacritic on top of the normal grapheme. But it's like basically the phoneme, like if I make it simple, the phoneme is the idea of the sound, and then the phone is the actual realization, right?
Okay.
And this is interesting to me because in singing we rarely realize vowels like they are described in the International Phonetic Alphabet.
No, you're
Where they
phoning it
say
in.
Yeah.
Get it? No.
I talked over your joke, so the same old problem.
Oh, I said you're phoning it in.
Oh yeah. So that's the one thing. The that's the vowel thing. But then I think there's an easy solution to that, namely saying, okay, vowels are social constructs. Let's say there's one default way of pronouncing vowels in the speech range, which not even all people obey, so to say, because it's just one way of doing it. But let's say we've defined one standard way, and then in singing we try to negotiate certain sounds with the audience. So it's like, do you agree? Kind of sounds like as if it was that. But I think you've talked enough about this before. The consonant thing is interesting to me because there's a couple of different ways to categorize consonants, and I think you just mixed up some of these categories. I remember you saying M is a nasal, but then it's also a labial. And,
A labial, yeah.
the thing is, it's both, but those are different categories. It's like saying,
Right.
this sound is edge. No, I think it's reduced density, when it could be reduced density edge.
Right, so you could just say all those things about it, basically.
Yeah, and there's we could go into the chart and just see how these are organized.
Okay, let me pull that up. And so you don't think should we get maybe a little bit of just Garcia's terms real quick, at least to just bounce against?
Yep.
So I'll just do the consonants because that's the more, I think that was the part with more features. The vowels, just how he thinks you make vowels. But we have seen that the consonants spring from the obstacles presented to issuing sounds by the organs of the mouth, viz., I don't know what vis means, by the way. Lips, teeth, tongue, hard palate, soft palate, etc. These organs combined in couples intercept every issue of sound or partially arrest it. When the passage is completely closed, the air accumulates behind the organs, and it is only at the moment of separation that the consonant is heard as an explosion. Okay, and what are the consonants thus produced? F, P, T, and CH, as in chin, K. Each two organs can only produce one explosive consonant. So are these what are called plosives now? We have explosives.
So I think Garcia is mixing up different kinds of consonants. Some of them I would call plosives, and some of them not.
So F is fricative these days, right? Or
yeah, and it never was a plosive because it doesn't have
Right.
an explosive sound.
Right.
So it's weird that he groups it together. And then the ch thing, as in chin, it has a different name, which we can get to, but I think it makes more sense to use these names once we've introduced them. in
right.
The chart. But we can read through it and just say
So I'll just read through it and then we'll go quick to the chart because there was a couple of like curious terms. The next one is curious. What are the other consonants? The permanent. If the organs permit an issue from the mouth or nose, the noise of the consonants can continue as long as the breath. Thus are produced the L, M, N, T, H, R, S, S, H, W, X, Y, or E, U, I don't know, Y, Gl,
so, yeah.
and GN, Gn, I guess, or Gn. I'm not sure which one. He's not clear.
Yeah, it's really hard to know what he means because it's English. He probably didn't talk about the English gnome kind of thing, like GN, where you omit the G.
Or a sign.
More like lasagna, probably.
Lasagna, yeah.
But we never know because these are normal letters, and then phonetics are better transcribed by symbols that mean one thing and not 10 different things in 10 different languages, right?
Right. So besides the explosives and permanent consonants, other consonants called semi-explosives share the characteristics of both series. They produce a slight murmur, which lasts during the very short time taken by the vocal cavity to fill itself with air. These are G, hard, B, D, and J. It is during this resounding, I need an effect for that, that they must be articulated so as not to be mistaken for the corresponding explosives. Yeah, so we have these explosives, semi-explosives, and permanents.
Yeah, it's super weird. I don't get how these categories are defined because I thought maybe some of them are voiced, some are not, but then it's just not consistent.
Yeah.
It's not about voicing, it's not about place of production, it's not about manner of production. And those are the main aspects that I could think of defining sounds.
Right. Okay, so let's take a look at specifically how you would be doing this.
Yeah.
Now that you've given me a perfect segue, and you're gonna have to direct me where you'd like to go. I should. Really
let's stay on the left side mainly, I'd say, because some of the extensions I added to the right and to the bottom of this chart, we basically don't need them. I just wanted to flex my extended thing. We could as well have used the normal one.
Well, I think it's good for people to see, though, that people are out there doing this kind of stuff, and because I think, like, unfortunately, it's hard to catch it's hard to actually cross paths with them, but people are out there who are looking for answers on things. They're looking in the sources that are out there. And the sources out there are confusing or not answering the questions or glossing things over. So yeah,
Yeah.
and we've got some chat interaction. So let me know if you want me to bring that up, or if you're checking the chat.
Yeah, I'm checking the chat too. And I think some of the questions, like the Matt question, I can answer in a minute.
Okay.
In the flow of explaining the different categories.
And then I can maybe use my new feature that I put in here with the with the floating title, and then I can try to have the theme for that question. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you're just joining, we're here with Tony Linka, voice teacher extraordinaire and guy who does crazy screaming and then also can somehow do a really good Nessun Dorma. He's joining us here, and we're looking at a chart that he's elaborated of the extended international phonetic alphabet. And this is one of the main tools for a lot of singers, I think. So, yeah. So direct me, Tony, is where we should go, and I can highlight if you want or whatever.
I think you can just center the thing a bit more so we see all the categories from left to right.
You mean like this?
Yep. And now you can zoom in as much as you can so it's big enough. But that's only luxury. Yeah. And now a bit to the left. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
So
let's cut off a little bit of the on the right hand side.
There's one or two categories missing, but it's no big problem. So what we see is basically two main aspects, namely the vertical one and the horizontal one in this chart. The horizontal one is place of production. So very, very loosely we could say there's labial consonants, so basically stuff that has to do with the lips. Then there's coronal, dorsal, and laryngeal as like big categories, but I think in practice actually we often don't use these terms. We go right into more nuanced thing. No, the document is going away.
Oh my god. No, sorry. I was trying. Jesus, there we go. Sorry.
It's back.
My bad.
So we could have the teeth involved, and that would be dental. Makes sense, right? We could also have the teeth and the lips involved, so that would be labiodental. So far it makes sense. Then I think it gets a bit more confusing for people who don't know these terms. We have alveolar or alveolar. I think it depends a bit on region. You can just correct me if you know there's one.
I always heard alveolar.
Yeah, alveolar. So so that's basically the ridge behind the teeth. And we could bring up probably like an anatomical picture that denotes these, but I think that would be a lot of switching back and forth. So maybe only if people don't get it, they can write it in the chat, and then later we can look. Then we have behind the alveolar ridge, which is post-alveolar. Then if we go even further back, kind of like the very Texas direction, we get retroflex. And then it goes to the soft palate, the velum, the uvula, then the pharynx, and then I added the categories of epiglottis, arytenoids, and false folds ventricular. So those are extensions I added because technically if you have your epiglottis vibrate like this, that is a consonant, if you will. You could say, well, it's a vocal effect actually, but there's nothing that makes this different from This one, for example, it's just that so this is an Italian R, for example. But
I'm gonna highlight that so in case people are looking to see where this stuff is. So here's the epiglottal.
yeah,
So these are your epiglottal sounds that you're making right now.
yeah.
So do you want to show those
I
again?
can show later which one exactly I did,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
those are 3 sounds and I did one. And then the very last one, which we don't see right now, so you could scroll to the right a bit,
I'll scroll to the right here.
which is an original category, is glottal, so that refers to the vocal folds themselves. So those are just places of production. There's a couple of different sounds we can make in those specific places. And now we gotta go to the left again. And now vertically, there's manners of production. So different types of sounds in general, regardless of where
am I
exactly
going
they're
here?
being produced.
To where's these manners
just the left
Okay.
column
Aha.
of the first thing.
Okay.
That starts with plosive, nasal, and so on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, the others, the other parts of that document aren't really important. Those are just
Okay.
about like
Gotcha.
super special sounds. So we have plosives, and this comes from explosion. So if I do that's explosive. If I do that's a plosive too. It's a plosive. And actually, you see, you can highlight the P that you see in the bilabial plosive category. So now we're playing, I don't know what it's called in English, Schiffe versenken. Basically, we're going by
Battleship?
chordates now.
Is it Battleship? Schiffe versenken?
Probably this game where it's like
Where you try
category 1A, 1B.
Yeah. Battleship. Battleship.
That's what we're doing. So that's our sound. Now you can highlight the T
Yeah.
in the alveolar plosive. Oh, you cannot keep all of them highlighted if you will.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Just for now.
PT.
That's our
Yep.
sound. Then you can highlight the K.
This is velar.
That's
here.
our velar plosive. So it's a plosive that happens at the velum. The tongue actually blocking the airway around the velum, right? So the tongue is always involved with these
Right.
consonants. And those are just 3 of those consonants that Garcia mentioned. Now, all of those are voiceless, so the vocal folds are not vibrating during them. But of course, we could just have voice variations of them. So instead of P, that would be B. So that's right next to the P.
Right.
B is also a bilabial plosive, but it's a voiced bilabial plosive. And we could have D instead of T and G instead of K, right? So those are just plosives in different places of production. Now we could talk about nasals.
That's interesting. Also, by the way, is if you look up tips on how to do ventriloquism, they show you these specific relationships for substitutions. So, for instance, P and B can be substituted for each other. Well, not P and B, but well, anyway, they show you these kinds of charts, and then
you basically in ventriloquism want to avoid bilabial consonants because you see the lips moving with those, right?
Yeah.
So you want to imitate the sound of a P or B with something else, which I'm not a ventriloquist, so I don't know what the best option is.
I think they use like a T for P.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
The dog teed on my leg kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, or key. Yeah.
I actually want to talk about one more plosive, namely the glottal plosive.
I'll move it over so that it's... Is it
Even further?
visible yet? No, I don't think it's visible yet.
All the way to the right, yeah. So this one, that looks like almost a question mark.
Yeah.
That's the glottal stop. That's a heart attack.
Okay.
And that's, naturally it's voiced, right? So those are all plosives. It's weird because you wouldn't think about the glottal stop as a consonant, but The International Phonetic Alphabet does, because you could have vowels with a glottal stop in the beginning or without it. So
Right. Well, that's what that, and that's
technically
kind of
it's a
similar.
separate phone or phoneme even, right?
Right. Right. But if you're, I
And then
mean,
there, sorry, yeah,
you're, yeah, it's just different labia. I mean, that are you, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway.
true. And the other ones that we didn't highlight, they aren't too relevant for English or Italian or French. I think I could mention the retroflex ones. That's kind of like the stereotypical Indian D and D sounds, right?
Right. And
So
isn't
that's
the American R, isn't that retroflex or no?
yes, but it's a different manner of production. So we're gonna get to that later,
Okay, okay.
right? So you don't see it in the first line
Oh, right,
yet.
because it's not a
We're gonna see it
retroflex.
later though.
Right, okay. Not a
Yeah, yeah,
retroflex
and
plosive.
that's the weird thing. The like less structured way of thinking about this is like, yeah, but now I'm mixing up these manners and places of production, and that's what Garcia's doing.
Right.
And then so that's why I'm a bit confused by Garcia. Let's go to the second category. We don't have to do all of them, but just the most important ones.
Okay.
Nasal. So a nasal consonant is any consonant with the nose open. That's nice. That fits our singing definition of nasal.
Right.
So M is a voiced bilabial nasal. N is a voiced alveolar nasal, right? And if you have forgotten already what those different places mean, you can just Google. Wikipedia gives these like short sentence definitions of that.
But I have to stop you because
Yeah.
I had a teacher who was a little bit spacey lady, and at the time there was this like millionaire or billionaire or whatever who actually turned out to be, I think, like a fake, or he reneged on his donations to the Met. But anyway, they called this whole area like the Villar Circle or something. The Alberto Villar was the guy's name, and she got confused somehow in her mind, but she called it the Villar Ridge, this alveolar ridge. So yeah,
I mean, there's even the velar thing. So like, what if velar does velar consonants, and then it gets even more
yeah,
confusing.
but this was Villar, like VR.
Yeah, yeah.
So VR
Yeah,
ridge.
it's like some voice teachers mix up arytenoids and retinoids. I don't even think retinoids is a word, but some people write that. And then there's different pronunciations: arytenoids, arytenoids,
right.
retinoids. Pretty confusing.
Well, and we were watching Corelli yesterday, and I was mentioning that his tongue sometimes isn't quite reaching the alveolar ridge.
Yeah.
So you get these weird consonants because he's just refusing to let the hyoid bone move to accommodate the consonant, and so you get this kind of lisping or kind of sounds.
And that would be super interesting to transcribe that phonetically, where it's like he's trying to pronounce normal words, so the phonemes have different phonetic realizations than what would be standard, right?
Right. And then how would you, so yeah, I wonder what you would indicate as a phoneticist. Like, what do you wind up putting there? What you heard?
I'd probably have to see the Corelli thing, but let's work through the whole thing. So we have all the vocabulary, and then we never have to see this chart again. I think one more you can highlight is the velar nasal, the sing sound. It's basically a combination of N and G, right?
Right.
That's a nice symbol, actually.
Notorious in classical pedagogy, this one.
Yeah. And then it's interesting, there's gray areas for pharyngeal, epiglottal, and so on, where it's like we don't really know whether we can make nasal consonants in these places. Like whether we can make consonants there. Probably we could. Like just use a nasal growl, like.
Right.
Okay. So probably that one shouldn't be gray, right? But it's like for lots of these possible sounds, we don't even have symbols. So we see a lot of blank space. And then
Right.
in places where people think this shouldn't be possible, they denote it gray. But all the gray spaces could be um, actually filled out with symbols as soon as someone sits down and says, "Here, I have proof that this is possible." Let's go
Okay.
to the
Right.
trills. Trill's going to be interesting because we're talking about different realizations of R. So there's the long R, which is the alveolar. That looks like a normal R that you just highlighted. That's
Uh-huh.
R.
And that's not this alveolar.
It is. Yes,
It is. Okay.
was good. That was good. And the funny thing, you can highlight it. And the funny
Uh-huh.
thing is, as far as I know, they don't have a symbol for unvoiced,
Aha.
but it's
So they think
possible.
of it as just adding the voice, or what?
Well, they have a symbol for the voiced version, but they don't have a symbol for the unvoiced version, as far as I know, because this is the extended alphabet, and I searched for basically all extensions that somebody else made so far. So there's a diacritic to indicate that there's no voice. So they put like a little
Right.
circle
Okay.
on top of the thing, but it's weird that they don't have its own symbol because it's not too ridiculous of a sound to make. And you might sometimes end up doing that in singing for
Right.
some reason, right?
Well, and
This is
if you're getting
interesting.
into like a sh sound, then the adding voice changes it a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Um.
And then just because I did it before, the epiglottal trill. That one.
Mhm.
That would be yeah, the voiced and unvoiced versions. And the funny thing about this is you can nasalize those, right? So you can put
Right.
a nasal diacritic on top, which is like a little wave. But then you cannot make, and that's the reason, by the way, I got a bit confused. That's the reason why the nasals up there are gray. You cannot just make a nasal sound without it being a trill or anything like that, or any of these other categories. A nasal would just be sending air through the nose because of um the air being blocked somewhere else, not to go
Okay.
out the mouth,
So
right?
the
And
nose
that's
has
just
to
not the
be
case
like
if
the
it's too low.
primary. The nose has to be the primary thing
Yeah.
for
So
it to be a nasal, rather than a
taps or
nasalized.
flaps. So we could have taps or flaps are basically short R's, for example, like ah ra, or even in America butter. And I'm not
Okay.
referring to the R. I'm referring to the double T.
Yeah.
That's the same sound as the Spanish or
And
Italian ara.
Americans, there's one Americans use that Canadians don't, I think.
Yeah,
So Americans say not at all.
not
Not
at
at
all.
all.
Yeah,
Not at all. And then Canadians say not at all.
not at all. Yeah.
So that would be an example of that, right?
So that's an interesting thing, because if you don't know phonetics, you would write ara as A-R-A and not at all with T's, or like other contexts with D's
Right.
and all that. And a phonetician would just say, well, that's this symbol. It's like
Okay.
the almost R looking symbol. And that's
Right.
a voiced alveolar tap or flap. I prefer flap, I think. And then there's, you see there's other options, but most of these don't even have names because they're not super everyday. Or at
Right, and
least
this
not,
is this is supposed to work also with languages that like don't have vowels, for instance.
yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah,
Chinese,
most
as far as I
languages do
know.
have vowels, I think.
No, but I mean, like, Chinese, for instance, like they don't have that concept of like, oh, this is a.
Oh no, they have like 10 different concepts of
Yeah,
what A is, right?
yeah.
Um,
But they don't,
and
and they
then
don't assemble them together into words. Like
yeah,
like with English, like where like that's a letter.
yeah.
Um,
So that's another thing. The letter in phonetics or in linguistics in general would be called grapheme.
grapheme. Okay.
Yeah. And the phonemes that we're talking about are referring to the sounds. So they have the vowel
Right.
sounds, but they don't have the vowel graphemes.
So you have
But they have other
wait, and
graphemes.
so you have graphemes, phones, and phonemes.
Yes, yes.
Right.
And then also lots of other words that we don't need. But like,
Right.
it
Well,
really
the
gets more complicated.
obstruents. What was it? Obstruents and
Yeah, the obstruent thing is weird because I find it weird that this is apparently the first thing you can read on Wikipedia because it's just not the practical thing.
no. I mean, I
for
saw
this
it
kind of
triggered
thing.
you. I was like, "Whoa, easy." I didn't mean anything by it. I just Wikipedia.
Yeah. It's like it's weird that I think it's just
This
like
is
an alternative theory of how we could uh categorize these things, but it doesn't really have to do with vowels and consonants. It's just like a different mapping.
right.
The fricatives, they have a lot of symbols here, and I think that's it's gonna be the most important one for singing because with the plosives, yeah, you gotta make some adjustments. Sometimes you have a bit less air. You could aspirate more or less, depending on what mode you want to sing in and all that. But then the fricatives, you could have bilabial. Okay, let's try this together actually, because this is not an everyday English consonant. Can you make a friction sound
Oops.
with your lips touching?
Oh.
Yeah,
And
I think
I'm
this
in
is
the first
an
one here.
SOVT exercise. Might be something that Titsay would recommend. Yeah, it sounds a bit like a V, but it's not a V because the
Right.
V would be labiodental, so that would have the teeth,
Right.
right? Um, then we have the THs, voiced and
Ah,
unvoiced.
so is this like in no, that's not what's in Polish for this kind of like L sound that's with the line through it, the letter L with the line through it, and it's like głos. Głos. Głos.
No, I think that one, that one, in my opinion, is almost more on the vowel side, if you will. But then
Okay.
it depends a bit. What's a vowel? What's a consonant? Those lines get blurred. I think we
Right.
have the w as in English, classified as a consonant, and we can search for it. It looks like the normal letter. I don't see it right now.
It's like it's L with a line through it. It's
Yeah,
just-
I know the
Oh,
I know the letter, the grapheme, but it's like, what's the sound? Like
Right.
just phonetically, what would we transcribe it as? And I think it would be a similar transcription, maybe as the English wa, as in water.
and then
Right,
people might be at that when you mention that, and then I'll just let you address it since people sometimes get this idea. They'll say something like, no, that's not how it is in my language, whatever.
Yeah.
And they show some subtle but to them really significant difference.
Yeah.
And then just how would you address that? Because that that might be in different languages. You have the same symbol maybe, and then these speakers won't agree on what the sound is.
Yeah. So I think it depends on whether those differences that they denote are phonemic or phonetic. So whether that makes for a meaning difference, or whether it's just a different realization of the same thing. If I say p versus p, that doesn't make a meaning difference. One p had more air. And there's a way to denote that. You could write a little h after the p to denote that there's air. Like that. But it's phonetically different, but not phonemically different. You could make a rough transcription and just ignore the extra air.
Right.
Basically. Right?
Okay.
But then if in their language, like Danish has all these different vowels. In Danish, I cannot speak Danish, but like probably if I say there's 5 vowels, a, e, I, o, u, they're gonna be like, no, there's actually like 500s of them. So there's no
Right.
500 vowels
So
in Danish, but it's
the
like, to them,
right,
those make distinct meaning differences. So they're phonemic differences. When in
right,
German, I hear these and they're like, that's three different A's, basically, right? So to me, those would be phonetic. It's like if you have a weird way of speaking, then that's your realization of that same thing instead of
right.
different things. So it depends on specific languages. I just found the w, you see it at the very bottom of the picture in the other pulmonic consonants thing. So the w is labeled as a voiced labial velar approximant.
Okay,
Approximant means
and I just looked up Polish and that's what was listed as the IPA for that sound.
yeah. So
Was this
that's what I
big
thought.
W's? Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
there could be a subtle difference, but just from hearing it, I'm saying, well, it's the same sound
No,
as
and
the
then
English
that's what I
w,
was
right?
told also is like the lips have to get kind of close together, but never.
But it's weird how people will come up with these really complicated descriptions sometimes when it's just like, well, it's the same sound as English wa.
Right.
Just think of it as wa. It's like some languages don't have the u, the German or French u, so they're like, okay, so you have to. The tongue has to get somewhere there, and then it's like this. Well, just say e and then round the mouth. You.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
No, I think that's probably the best way to work on vowels, especially because there's Garcia puts like really specific areas for everything, but in
Yeah.
my opinion, it's all really adaptive, and a lot of the ways you can tune your vowels or change the resonance are fungible. So you could do that in one area or something else in another area of your vocal tract, and you kind of will get similar results.
Yeah.
Within limits. But
So I just quickly want to mention
Yeah.
some of the fricatives. So we have
I'll look at the chat while you're.
yeah. So we have the
talking.
alveolar s and z, post alveolar sh and z. Retroflex basically would be like to English ears similar to those, but further back. Sh and z. Then what else is important to German speakers? The palatal unvoiced fricative as an ich, Licht is interesting, and then also the velar ach, lachen. Maybe also French. I'm not sure. No, I think in French, in speech at least, sometimes you have these weird R realizations where it's like merde.
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking right now what exactly that one could be. I think it's the uvular fricative. So the flipped R that you see.
You also have these kind of orphan sounds. Like someone might say the word yes,
Yeah.
and it ends like this. We.
Yeah. So that's aspiration at the end, and you'd indicate it by adding an H.
Right.
And then you could indicate it's not just some H, it's an H in the shape of an E. We.
Right.
It's not really yet. It's just very. So there's ways to phonetically transcribe that, but like in rough transcription, you wouldn't even care. It's just we, right? And then let's quickly jump just down a bit in the document to affricates. There it is in the center of the picture. You see it?
Yeah, I see it. I'll
Can
try to
highlight it for
center
the
it on the.
people?
Whoops.
So affricates.
1 second. I'll center it and highlight here.
Affricates are combinations of plosives and fricatives. For example, the chin one that Garcia mentioned is the third one. T, sh, like ch, ch. And there's a bit of debate whether those are just combinations of two different sounds or whether they are so quickly pronounced that they're one sound now. Ch, ch, ch. And in Garcia's thing, they're regarded as one thing. But now it's like, well, we could think of them as combinations, and then they're affricates. Now we can jump back to the approximants. There's a couple of different uh, kinds of approximants. We have the normal ones like the English R, which is the alveolar voiced approximant. It could also be
And that's over this one?
to the left, yeah. So
Yeah.
this one, it could also be post-alveolar if you form it further back, but then we don't have a symbol for that. Then you have the retroflex, which is more of the Texan kind
This
of
one?
thing.
Yeah.
Or is it, I know, yeah, the
Yeah. Roger
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Roger.
yeah.
Yeah. Over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also have lateral proximants. So the sides of the tongue are relevant for those like L. The alveolar lateral approximant. It's the L.
There we go.
Right. And if you make a flap in that L position, it's weird. That would be a lateral flap, but this is not too relevant for most operatic languages, right?
I think I may have had to use one in an opera before.
Yeah.
Where we had like these words from one of the languages of the coastal First Nations that were in Vancouver before. We did like a magic flute with a theme from native things. And maybe it's not that, but the word I had to say was tisirq. This kind of...
Sounds almost like one of these non-pulmonic click
okay. Yeah, it
noises
was...
that we see in the bottom right corner.
Oh, okay,
By the way, pulmonic means that the lung gives air.
But that click, yes, but the one before it was tisirq. It was, they would say it had to be kind of like liquid. And there was this deal with...
liquid, by the way, liquid is another word that doesn't really fit in this chart. Liquid would be a group
or
of
slurry,
anything that
that's what they would
sounds
say.
like it's flowing. Basically,
Okay.
that's why it's called that. So an L would be a liquid, an R would be a liquid.
Okay.
I think even
okay,
like
I can make it for you, but it's not this flap thing, definitely. So it was...
Yeah.
I think Welsh
Yeah,
has
so
it
anytime
too.
there's a weird side of the tongue thing being involved, it's probably got
Yeah.
a lateral in its name.
Okay, lateral.
But those are like really specific sounds where
Yeah.
I'm not too sure either. But so most of the consonants were highlighted. We didn't highlight all the fricatives, but those are the ones that Garcia is talking about. Now we could go back to Garcia and see, okay, what are the similarities and what are the differences? What we could try to make sense of why he's grouping them in these
And
categories. It's really weird to me.
I've also got Corelli, if we want to look at his consonants. And it's later Corelli, so he's going full old man with his consonants. But here we go.
Also, I think Corelli had a lisp. I never hear him pronounce z clearly.
I don't know that he had a lisp when he was speaking.
Yeah, I don't know either. But it would be interesting to listen to interviews and find out.
I was listening
Because
to his
maybe we're
interview.
doing these really sophisticated vocal analyses where it's like, oh, he's lisping now to modify the consonant.
No,
And then
but
in the
there's
end, turns out-
no, there's this interview with this guy, with what's his name? Wait, let's see, with this.
Dovrebbe un cantante servirsi della voce di petto?
No.
What's his name?
Stefan
Zucker. Stefan Zucker. There's a Corelli interview with Stefan Zucker, I think,
Yeah.
where he's trying to, and Stefan Zucker, if I recall correctly, is like trying to get him to say something, and Corelli's not saying it. He doesn't want to say it because he doesn't think it's true. He's trying to, anyway. He's talking about the mask or something, and he's trying to get Corelli to say that the voice goes in the mask or something. And there's a, but And Corelli says, I don't believe the voice goes in the mask, but he uses the letter S in that, the sound S in there. I don't remember a lisp
It
in my
sounds normal.
memory. It sounds
Okay.
normal. So I think it's just like, because if I'm like refusing to let this come up, when I make an S sound, my larynx really wants to come up. I can hold it down and kind of reach up, and it'll make a distorted S just from like brutally holding the hyoid down as I make an S. So I think that's what he's doing. He's more interested in the next vowel, so he's not gonna compromise it even a little bit for the consonant. But I've heard others doing this too. So and the quick, easy conclusion to jump to is that they're imitating Corelli, but I think it's more functional.
Yeah. By the way,
so yeah.
just to clear, because I see the obstruents and sonorants thing, seems that obstruents are plosives, fricatives, and affricates. So just the first two categories. Oh, no, sorry. Just the first category, the fricative category, and the combination.
Right. Yeah, and then everything that makes...
Everything else would be sonorants.
Right.
I mean, it makes sense. But
and then those
it's not
are broken
practical
down
for
into
us.
consonants and vowels, right?
Yeah. It's
So
like this is not a useful mapping for singers, because
No.
we care about where and what and whether it's voiced, right? So
And the rhythmic parts are really important to me as a singer with consonants. And when it's going to be before the beat, which is like almost always the consonant before the beat, and then when the beat hits, you're already on the vowel kind of thing.
Yeah.
Except for glottals. And then glottals go right on the beat for some reason.
Yeah.
But they don't consider them consonants. And then, what else about consonants? The big thing about consonants is also that sometimes they suck. Especially like N and M. So you'll hear people replacing them, if they're looking for fuller density anyway, with like unvoiced consonants.
Yeah.
So M just, or with denasalized voice consonants. Sorry. So like M becomes B. Instead of mama, you maybe have like ba, you know, but they hide it. Ba, you know.
Yeah, and it's the same place of production, right?
Yes.
It's bilabial in both. Yeah.
Yeah, and a little bit that what is it called? Is it the McGurk effect, where you know you kind of, maybe that's not the McGurk effect. No, McGurk effect was where you hear, it's like you hear the same sound and they play two different videos, and you wind up hearing two different things based on what you saw. Yeah, really weird. So he's got let's see. Explosives, F, P, T, and CH.
So the explosives are 1 fricative, 3 plosives, and 1 affricate.
Okay, that's kind of random.
Weird. Yeah, it is. It is to me.
And then permanence, which I had major philosophical problems with.
Yeah.
With this
So
semantics.
We have a lateral approximant, the L. We have the nasals, MN. We have the dental fricatives, or like the. I don't know if it's voiced or not. Could be both. We have an
where
R.
are you? Okay. Where are you? I don't see those. Okay, yeah.
I'm
I have
just,
L, M,
reciting
N,
them.
T, H.
Yeah. Then we have the
Oh, yeah.
R, which is
Yeah.
the alveolar approximant. We have the S, which is the alveolar fricative. We don't know whether it's a voiced as or not. Z.
Right.
In English, you'd probably transcribe the voiced thing as Z. But then this is an originally French text, so we don't know.
Right.
SH could be sh. So that would be post-alveolar. It's the nice symbol that looks like this. We have the W, which is it's this special thing that is listed not in the chart but lower, namely the voiced label velar approximant. We have the X. What X? It could be X, like G Z. Could be that. X, which is an affricate too, but we don't know what he means. We have the the Y could be a Y. And then the GL could be olio, this kind of thing.
So it's almost, I don't. It almost seems to me like he didn't work very hard on this section.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
know,
just
like,
don't see how they're related, really.
yeah, it's a bit of an, maybe
even-
this section is a bit of an afterthought for him or something, or I don't know.
It could be actually. I mean, you could try to say all of those are voiced. So the th could be th, but then what about like
Right.
breath? You don't say breath.
Right.
So he just doesn't mention those. And then I don't get why G like G, B, D, Y or J or whatever, those are different from the others. So
Yeah.
so it seems there's a tendency of voicing in the permanent ones. But I don't know, you know, even
But
some
not
of those
with
are plosive.
sh. You
so
know,
why
sh
is
is
bd
not.
less explosive?
Yeah. So, who knows? There's something else I really take issue with, which is that he's making claims that you can project your voice essentially
Yeah.
with consonants.
Yeah, bullshit.
And
I heard that
watched-
too, by the way. A soprano told me that I don't need to sing loud as a tenor. Don't push the voice. You have consonants.
I heard someone try to take this advice. You know, he was being a good boy, whatever. Conductor was kind of in a position of power over him beyond the immediate production, you know. Like a lot of influence on how this singer was singing. And the conductor had tried to claim to me that I would be able to use not so much voice and just a lot of consonants. And now that I remember, he was claiming that this was like historical instruction or something. And I wonder if
And
this
it
is the source.
if you read Garcia.
Yeah. And it is if you read Garcia. And it's just absurd, I think. I mean, but the thing is, you can test these things.
Yeah.
And so I watched someone testing it, and it was hard to watch because it's a real struggle. You do wind up hearing the consonants, right? But they wind up being the loudest part.
And
Almost.
it's much more work. It
Yes.
makes singing much
Yeah.
harder.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seemed not to be protective in any way.
No.
So the guy was struggling really hard, seemed really uncomfortable, using very high pressure. Because, I mean, what else would happen if you're trying to focus on consonants? You
Yeah.
can't make sound other than by building up a whole lot of pressure and then trying to...
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's funny is that that's exactly what Garcia warns against.
Yeah.
Jerks, force of voice, substituting force of voice for clearness, precision, energy of articulation. Those are all things I consider would happen if someone is trying to carry the voice on consonants.
Yeah. I also like violence would cause singing to resemble barking.
What's the
It's like-
consonant in barking? It's more of a vowel, I guess.
Yeah, it is, and it's like I'd like to see like instead of "di legua notte," like this. You could probably travel far if you have a like dramatic baritone dog. I guess.
Oh, yes. No, I have
Yeah.
my...
I have my cool. It doesn't work with my bubble though. I wind up having. So
If I get you off the screen, then... Yeah, I think it's way cooler like that.
Olivia is asking in the chat whether we can find this extended phonetic alphabet somewhere, and you can find it on my website, tony-linke.com /
Hang on. I'm actually-
material.
Oh, you can type it in the chat, and I'm actually going to stick that...
Can I actually type links into the chat, or will YouTube delete them?
It might take it away. So tell me again.
Tony-linke.com.
Tony... Whoops. Hang on, I got caps lock on. Tony-linke.com.
/
Yep.
free - material.
And
now
let's
you
see
can
if I
try out if that actually works.
I can bring
If that
up.
actually leads you to the address I hope it's leading to, but I think it should.
Oh, let's see. Tony. No.
Yeah, and then when you're on that side, you have to.
Is that correct?
To scroll down.
Is that correct, Tony? My link there, by the way.
Yeah. I think the link looks good. So you have to scroll down to my own material, and then you can click on a link, and it leads you to my Dropbox folder, and then there's a subfolder, the extended IPA, and there you have it. It's a bit complicated, but it's just one of many other resources, so I have to.
And
keep
it should let
structured
me
somehow.
type into the chat. So I typed it into the chat. That'll definitely let me do it. So there you go. And I don't think we have This Is Opera with us because the connection is really bad.
Yeah.
So, probably because I'm zooming. So I'm attempting to like zoom with you and then also stream to two different channels.
Yeah.
It's not working out so well. If people in the channel want to donate some money on a semi-regular basis, then we can do Restream and troll This Is Opera harder. But it's probably fine just the way it is. Send me money anyway, though.
Yeah. By the
Anyway,
way, I didn't answer the question. If a normal P is plosive, what is the P when Draco Malfoy says Harry Potter? I think it's just a very, very aspirated bilabial plosive.
bring up your... Oh, where'd you... No, not that. Well, I don't know why it broke. Seems like I can't get my... Oh, there it is. Ah, that works. I'm going to try to bring your thing back. Where were we here? Yeah. No, take it away. Take it away. Bring it back. There we go. There's your thing.
Nice. By the way, maybe I can add one thing now that we have the document there.
Mm-hmm.
if you can scroll down a bit to the so that we see the full vowel chart.
Yeah, I'm just moving your text over a little bit here.
Yeah.
Well, I put it in the chat, so I'll just hide this now.
Yeah.
And what am I doing?
Scroll down so we can see the full vowel chart. Yeah, that's it already. That's too far.
Diacritics here? Oh.
No.
Oh.
Higher up. Yep. That's it.
Vowels.
You
I
can
see.
zoom in on the vowels if you
Yeah,
will.
I'll center this here.
So that one's slightly more vowels than you find in the normal IPA chart, actually. Let me just quickly compare which ones I added.
By the way, if you're in the chat, guys, could you give us just your quick update on how our audio levels are? Yeah, neither of us can really like monitor this as we're doing it. Then we just have a surprise at the end when we watch afterwards. Oh
Yeah.
crap, the levels are totally off or something like that. So
Yeah.
let us know how it sounds. Is Tony about the same volume as me, or am I louder, or is he much louder? Let us know. That's really helpful, guys. Yeah, anyway.
I think if you just zoom out a tiny bit.
Mm-hmm.
One more? Yeah, perfect. We see at the very bottom the central open vowel, namely the A. And this to me, like the one that looks like a capital A, basically.
I'm going to circle because I think I'm obscuring
Yes,
things.
this one, yeah. So this one is not part of the official standard IPA vowel chart, but it's the one I use in German.
And
To me, it's the most normal ah.
But can people use this without paying you?
Yes,
Okay.
they can use that sound. But if they don't pay me, they have to pretend it's the front ah.
Okay.
So they have to write it as the small one, and then they can indicate by usage of diacritics that it's more centralized. No, but it's
thank you,
weird to me
Nikolai. Thank you, Nikolai Primark. That's very helpful. So yeah, sorry to interrupt you there.
Nice. So, I find it interesting how, in terms of singing, we often talk about like you and I, we probably don't do that, but lots of teachers often talk about bring the vowel more forward, or it's very far in the back or whatever. Where it's like, okay, IPA has symbols for all of these. It doesn't usually have the centralized A symbol, but now it has it in my version. So we have like 3 different A's. We have A, we have A, and we have A. That's respectively the left of these A symbols. The other ones are rounded, so with lip rounding, and then A. So we don't need them. But it's like, okay, if I'm singing different A variations, which ones am I using? I'm not really using any of them because my mouth is usually a bit more open. But like, just tongue-wise, what am I doing if I sing what am I doing in terms of IPA if I had to transcribe it? Is that the central R? Is it fronted? Because my tongue now it's fronted. But what would make it a back is that already back?
Well, if it's
my tongue
back,
was just a bit more
then yeah, but if it's back, then
It's a fake.
It's like even in complete vocal technique, they have this difference between neutral ah, and
Right.
edge ah.
that kind of
which
drives me
sometimes
nuts
is-
about CVT actually.
Yeah.
These vowels that they use to me are really subjective.
Yeah.
And then it's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that to me, it's in the wrong spot. That's the wrong place to have something so subjective. Just a small criticism of.
Yeah, and the question is, how could we make it more objective? Because if we used IPA, which they kind of do, because they use example words, and example words usually stand in for very specific phonemes.
Right.
So they kind of use IPA even if they don't use the symbols. But then the CVT also know that you cannot use IPA for the fifth octave edge range.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Not
So
the same
yeah,
thing.
I mean,
So
I guess you know where I would come down on that is that to me vowels, you shouldn't use vowels like that because you should use them. They're really important, but they're attitudes. Whereas vocal modes function on position and motion, not on vowels. They don't care about vowels.
But pedagogically, if you had a beginner singer and you wanted to teach them overdrive, would you go only by imitation, call and response? Do A.
Well, what I do is, so I have this basic.
Yeah.
It's fun to visually do this, but the reason for it is because the plan I use is. So people say, do you use imitation or do you use like specific things or what? And it's yes. So you just dance around. So you try imitating, and then you try to let go of the imitation. Maybe you're going to take a specific position, and then et cetera, et cetera. If you have specific positions that you have trouble linking together, maybe you need to look at motion, or sometimes you can't achieve a specific position without, or you can achieve it more easily by just doing a specific motion. There was an example of that yesterday where I was talking about in what I think is this more kind of overdrive based approach in opera. Maybe it wasn't yesterday, but that you want a big mouth opening, and for some reason it's like a little bit bigger than what you'd expect. It's not necessarily huge on all pitches, but it's a little bit bigger than what you would expect. And for some reason, to get to that position, it helps to forget about the position and just think about opening quickly. Because when you opened quickly, you went further.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, once you've established, I don't know, 70% of what you're doing through position and motion, as I call it, by just putting body parts in a particular location, then you think of the vowel that you want. And then you're working from here, I think. Or, even if you're not winding up with the sound, like maybe you're going for it. Or something like that. Yeah. So to me, it's, position
So
and motion.
I think I actually do it in a similar way. I kind of differentiate what level of student I'm working with, or it's not even about what level of student, but like how advanced is the context, so to say. If it's so basic that we talk about chest voice and head voice, then I might also pretend there's objective vowels. And I might use some of the CVT concepts. Even though CVT doesn't give very specific definitions, I have specific definitions where it's like, okay, overdrive to me is not just an it is yell timbre. So it's hey. And then in classical, if you talk about opera drive, it doesn't necessarily have that. So there you have a different interpretation of the same vowel. And then logically to me, curbing vowels would be more closed than overdrive vowels, no matter whether my mouth is actually more open. I could have a very closed mouth on overdrive, oh, and I could have a very open mouth on curbing, oh. Curbing has a more closed timbre, regardless of my mouth shape. So now I have this specific thing, but that's what I came up with. CVT doesn't write it. They give sound examples, and it makes most sense if you interpret it like this. But yeah, it's very prone to be misinterpreted.
Yeah, and
So-
one problem that occurred to me the first time I saw that, I was like, okay, well, how would I explain this to someone who doesn't have access to the exact English accent that they're thinking of?
Yeah.
What if I want to take this to China, for instance?
Yeah, and they might have Chinese example words, but I know the German example words are bullshit. Like they
What-
use. I don't even know what the German words were, but they use for OE the edge thing. They use the English word herb. For an American, there's an R, an herb.
Right.
Or do you say herb? No, you say herb, right?
I say herb.
Yeah.
Herb.
So
Herbs-
like
herbs and spices.
Maybe as a Brit you'd say herb, but then that's not the
Herbs
same
and
as
spices. Yeah.
yeah.
That's where they got
And
that
then
thing. Yeah.
phonetically, that's not the same as the German Öffnung. You don't say
Right.
that sounds like a German accent. If you say herb, no, it doesn't sound British. Herb, right? So it's trying to be very extensive and objective, and it's failing to be so. And it would be better if it was less about the IPA positions, and if it was more about like certain circumstances where okay, overdrive vowels have to be yell timbre, and we could most easily denote that as and o. Okay, write that down. A yelly a yelly o. Now it makes sense to me. And then in edge mode, theoretically, as we don't rely as much on the timbre, the doesn't have to be yelled. So you could be like, okay, now we already have an overdrive. Let's say that an edge is also yell. Or you could say, oh, the edge is different from the overdrive But then it doesn't make sense to just use the same symbol. So it's like,
Right. I mean, to me, the edge is it's like absolutely different from the overdrive Like in terms of like staying organized, I have to know which one I'm doing. For my opera stuff, and the cost of mixing these two coordinations for me is going to be curbing, and it's unintentional curbing. And then the problem with that is it's really difficult to get back out again once you get it started.
By the way, one question. When you talk about reduced density holes, could that also be reduced density edge and overdrive?
Yes.
Or does it have to be curbing? Yeah.
No, I think it can be reduced density edge and overdrive as well. But I think often what happens is curbing. The curbing is going to come from trying to make it full. It sounds weird, but the curbing will come from trying to make it into fuller density edge and overdrive.
Yeah.
So the body kind of gets, I don't know what happens, but like my body gets confused once it starts, I guess. And curbing is just there like I don't know, like a welcoming old friend or something, or an addiction or something. I don't know how to explain it. Well, I do know how to explain it. It accepts any vowel.
Yeah.
But you can stay metallic. So it seems like the solution. And it also lets you push really hard. So it feels like you're doing something that should result in more sound, but you don't get more sound. You just get more sweat. And your vocal cords folds get more and more stretched out, I guess, or I don't know what happens, but it's hard to get out of the situation without, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes of rest is crucial. But then even then, the rest of the night, you're a little bit, you got to be careful. Because you can trigger it again kind of at a moment's notice. So, and for those of you who are watching who don't know this term that I'm talking about, is this, I call it a reduced density hole. And the reason it has a name is because I was talking to someone else who experienced the same effect, and that person is a CVT teacher, and we came up with this name for it. If you were to compare the sound of, let's say, Giacomo Lauri Volpi with Franco Corelli, something about it is lighter with Lauri Volpi. Now, Lauri Volpi is not in a reduced density hole, but the difference between the two is density. Franco Corelli tends to sing things with fuller density than Lauri Volpi, even though both are using the same vocal modes, more or less. Maybe Lauri Volpi is using less opera overdrive than Corelli and more edge, but let's say both are using this what complete vocal technique calls edge, but Lauri Volpi is stretching his vocal folds out a little bit more, and that makes him more flexible, but also makes a lighter sound. And it's totally cool if you're doing it on purpose. But when you were going for what Franco Corelli's doing and you wind up with reduced density, you don't get Giacomo Lauri Volpi. You get something else that's not working so well.
Yeah.
And if you're a tenor, you may have experienced this, where you go into a practice room maybe and you can sing Cavaradossi no problem, or you can sing Wagner or whatever, or maybe in your school you were able to do those things, and then you go out into a different environment and suddenly something happens and you got like half your sound, half your voice, and you're sweating a lot.
I think I've experienced that in a non-classical context.
Uh-huh.
I might have told the story already, but probably not on this channel. So
No,
it's like,
tell us.
So in my final singing exam at the conservatory, I had to do a musical theater piece. And I went with Empty Chairs at Empty Tables, the cafe song of Lemmy. So it's like phantom faces at the windows. My friends, no more. No. Oh, my friends, don't ask me. So this one, I wanted to make this one super powerful and big. And I wanted it to be a surprise. So I started off the song with a microphone. It's like, like this. And then I wanted to go, hey, this kind of intensity. And I wanted to go back from the microphone, obviously, because it would have been too loud and it wasn't really necessary anymore. So I wanted to step back just like a meter or two during that phrase. And the vocal mode I was going for would have been edge. Now, if you remember what posture Philippe is talking about for opera edge, it's as far as I remember, open chest and not open back, right?
Yeah.
Or this, and
the
that's
head
the
rotation
one that I practiced in my room. Oh, my friends, it's really loud and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was, I had this kind of microphone posture. Do you see it here in the camera? Yeah. So I was leaning forward against the microphone and with an open back, but not an open chest. So no. And I went back, but I failed to open my chest. I would have had to do no more. Oh, my friend. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have set me up for the right thing. What happened was, I stayed in this thing because I wasn't aware of my posture. I tried to go for edge intensity, so volume, twang, subcladic pressure, and I went into push curbing thing. It was like, oh, oh, my friends, Not as bad as that, but it was pretty bad.
Yep.
Felt horrible. Didn't sound too good. It was a bit dirty. I think they actually liked it. It was like, oh, that's so emotional. It's got this like uncontrolled creaking there. So nice. I didn't like it though. So yeah, that's my experience with an RD hole, I think. And,
The-
and luckily, it was only like 10 seconds at the end of one song out of my 30-minute singing exam, and not an actual stage performance of an opera, right?
There's a I'm actually gonna make a title from this: unintentional reduced density. Yeah. Let's see if we can. Yeah. So there's an element of your story, actually, and one in particular that stands out to me because I need to get better font there. Anyway. I'll work on this title so that it looks more like chalkboard, I guess. So the story element that really stands out to me is that there was some job that you needed to do, needing your focus, that involved, well, I would say not necessarily your eyes, but something to do with your literal head. So like you had to interact with something.
I had to
using-
lean forward towards the microphone. I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have had to, but the alternative would have been I would have had to set up the microphone differently for that one song compared
Yeah.
to the other songs, which would have disturbed the flow of the exam, and then they give me a worse grade because the flow isn't as nice. So it's like
Right.
these super trivial circumstances.
Right, but
that
that's
didn't happen.
cognitively not dissimilar from when you have a score to read. So when you're singing a rehearsal, for instance, and you're reading from a score at the same time.
Yeah.
Although you don't need to have your head close, you're using your eyes to look down at the score. And if you were to suddenly just rotate your head as much as you want, you'd lose track of the line that you're following. And it tends to result in the same, you called it not being aware of the posture. But I think what happens is like your brain gets kind of mixed signals about which way is up and which way is down and which way is forward and which way is back. So like the horizon gets a little bit messed up, and like one system is working with one horizon and the other system's working maybe with a different horizon or something, which isn't, that's how you get seasick, when your middle ear is not agreeing with your eyes. But I think this is a little bit different, but related. And other than looking at music, the other big thing that can do this in a classical singing scenario is looking at the conductor. So you're following the conductor, and especially if the beat is not secure and suddenly you need to really focus on the conductor, but you want it to go into edge on a high note, and so you want it to be opening your chest and rotating your head up. And now you're not. Now, well, that's in conflict with this other job of looking at the conductor. Luckily now, there's monitors a lot of the times where if you remembered, you would have been able to look up at a TV screen and there's the conductor, which you can see from the stage. But you didn't necessarily remember, and also it's a little bit, if you really, really were losing your place, not losing your place, but losing your contact with the orchestra and falling out of sync, and you really needed to refer to the conductor, you may have needed to look in person at the actual person. And then the other thing is that when you're looking at a monitor, you can't communicate to the conductor. Whereas when I look at a conductor, mostly the conductor is communicating to me, but also I'm communicating to the conductor a little bit. And that's not possible while looking up. So in order to avoid reduced density holes, I actually had to start telling myself to just like ignore the conductor more, to just, forget the conductor. Because the moment you look and you focus, you've lost the sound. And yeah, and this guy's not gonna understand why that is. And by the time you're explaining yourself, you're already not in charge of your own performance. You know, you're justifying yourself. So yeah. So it's like a really complex kind of like a psychosocial emotional thing, these reduced density holes. How we got to there from phonetics, so that's kind of interesting.
But actually, now we get this question by Joey Pie. Quick question: What things give you the greatest projection for the most efficiency? And I think this
Edge.
one's not easy to. Yeah, I'd say it depends on what you define as projection.
Okay, yeah.
Do you I guess the easy answer is edge.
Yeah.
But I want to make it harder. Because what we often see if we compare the volumes of overdrive, and I can only speak for like pop and rock overdrive and edge, not sure about classical, but if we compare B4 in overdrive to B4 in edge on the same vowel, full density, full metal on both, overdrive is gonna be louder, just decibel wise.
Aha.
But it's not necessarily gonna sound louder because edge
Right.
has more of the 3 kilohertz range that our ears are more sensitive to, so
Hmm.
it might be more piercing. And then in the orchestra, the question is, what makes an operatic voice project? Is it the singer's Foreman cluster, or is it the overall size? So if it's just a singer's Foreman cluster, edge is gonna be more projecting in any case. Like even reduced edge probably would project at least as well as full overdrive. But then I also heard you say on this channel that sometimes overdrive has a certain boominess, and it's not just about the ring or the squeal or whatever. It's also about the overall size. So sometimes
And especially on that
overdrive might be
on that
easier.
B4 especially, you can make it really loud for some reason. That's
Overdrive
the loudest.
just exponentially grows volume-wise on the webboard. Like theoretically, if you can do a fuller overdrive C, that should be the loudest. Or if you could
Right.
do a D, that could be the loudest. But probably it's gonna get hard.
It gets
Mouse-wise.
reduced. My C5 is always a bit reduced compared to what I can do on B4. And if I have a fuller C5, there's days when I have a fuller C5, yes, but then the B4 is even fuller than than that. And it's fuller than normal. So, and the loudest note I ever sang in my life was a B4 when I was sick. I was barely able to phonate for speaking. Just really inflamed. And I thought about canceling the show. I think it was COVID or whatever. We didn't want to get tested because then could cancel the show. I shouldn't be admitting this, but it wasn't encouraged either. So, and somehow I just figured out how to get a sound going. I had no dynamics. It was just loud or nothing, basically. And just really swollen vocal folds, and the B4 just kind of clicked in, and it was, it was surprising.
I read this really interesting, what's it called? Rezension, basically like a feuilleton critique. Let me just Google. So basically, review. Yeah, it's just a review, write-up, whatever, of a Martin Mühle performance of De Grieux in Manon Lescaut in Berlin. And I actually saw him there, and the performance I saw was really good. But the performance before that, he must have been sick. And they announced it before the opera. And I don't know how he sang that night because I wasn't there. So maybe he sounded just like he always sounded, but probably he sounded a bit more sick if they had to announce it. And the review said Martin Mühle was loud, but it sounded really effortful. And I'd rather prefer they cancel so they don't hurt their voices. And what kind of culture is that? And blah, blah. So it was rather critical of the whole thing, but the review had to point out he was really loud. I mean, in my opinion, he's always loud. So maybe he was just normally loud, but maybe he was extra loud. So that's
But-
interesting.
it makes a lot of sense if you have very swollen vocal folds and your vocal coordination that you rely on uses the entire vocal fold, as opposed to relying on being able to take a section or like the cover of it and vibrating that. Well, now you've just made the whole thing bigger and heavier. It's going to be harder to get it going, but if you do get it going, that which is going is bigger and heavier. So it's going to be louder.
Louder and a bit more effortful, probably.
And because it's louder and more effort, and it's more effort to do.
And personally, if I go to the opera as part of the audience, I prefer performances that sound effortful to me over performances that sound super easy to me. And I'm not sitting there as a voice teacher. I'm sitting there as a music lover, and I want to get screamed at and yelled at. And if I'm in the first row, I want to get spat at, probably. I don't want to know that there's no chance of anyone fucking up a high note. I want to I want to shake because I'm not sure.
Yeah, you want to feel some sense of danger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird that opera winds up with this whole health thing, like it's carrots or something like. And I think somehow it came from the phonograph. Here's my weird theory, is that the phonograph needed a market. And just like Apple, the phonograph companies turned to the school system, the public school system in the U.S. Because if you've got a big corporate product and you want to roll it out instantly and like plaster the entire country, if you can get the public school systems buying your stuff, then you've got it made. They're able to have giant libraries of phonographs and stuff, right? Whereas individual consumers didn't have much hope of that. So they created this whole marketing campaign around the idea that listening to music could build your character. You're not listening to music because it's cool. So opera goes from being, cool, something that you do because you want to, and it became something for building character. So as long as we're building character, why don't we also make ourselves healthy?
Mm-hmm.
So this whole granola kind of thing, and granola is really the perfect example, because people who are granola in American English are always doing really healthy stuff. But what is granola? Granola is like deep fried sugar treats. It's like the most unhealthy breakfast you could possibly think of, almost. It's like fried bread, basically. And opera is kind of the same. How it's like not good for you to sing opera. It's not supposed to be good for you. It's supposed to be a little bit dangerous. And we should have that sense anyway. Even if a good coach is trying to keep you from getting injured, we shouldn't actually take the risk out, I think, completely. And the funny part is that this neutral stuff, singing neutral all the time or reducing the density as much as possible, as often as possible, doesn't seem to be all that easier on anybody's voice.
Yeah. Joey Pye's writing He prefers if the notes are sung in the right rhythm, correct pitch, excellent vocal acting, and a lot of expression and good phrasing, which I think is rare to find all of this at the time, which he supposes makes the audience listen more intensely, making your sound seem to project more. So this is interesting, this kind of perceptual volume, because you focus more on it as an audience. I think if it's loud enough that you actually hear those interesting nuances, that can be the case. But then I saw Pagliacci with is it Canio?
Mm-hmm.
With a Canio who from what I heard had this really nice musical phrasing that if it was recorded in a studio I would have loved because it sounded dark and ringy and very regular vibrato. It was just a bit too quiet for me to care.
Right.
Was
Well,
like,
and that's a
no, I want to. I want this,
right.
and it's a dramatic thing. So
And how was his was the acting also kind of a little bit low key, or was it?
it's I don't really focus on the acting, so I don't know. I think the acting was decent, but then I don't care about the moves somebody makes.
No, but I
if-
mean, if it's in Pagliacci, if Canio is bringing the voice and the acting together, you're a little bit afraid. Yeah, like you said, there's that thrill of danger a little bit from the singing, but then you're also a little bit afraid, like maybe he's gonna kill her for real.
Yeah,
And
but
it's
I
really
guess you could have boring singing with nice moves, or boring singing and boring moves.
Yeah.
So I don't really remember. I was a bit underwhelmed. Is all. It wasn't even too quiet. It was nice for Mozart, but the music wasn't Mozart. So it was like I'd rather have someone who's struggling with everything above G4. So I feel something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I think I don't know. I feel a lull and I'm hungry. So I think why don't we wrap it up? I think that was a
Yep.
pretty good discussion. And Joey Pie, yeah, great questions and great comments. Also everyone else, except for This Is Opera. You guys. No, you guys are great. This Is Opera.
You gotta make more clickbaity stuff to get them back.
No, they were big on Sunday night. Last night was but their
because
stream
you-
is
you-
not working right now.
You roasted Jonas Kaufmann. They love that.
Oh yeah. But I didn't really roast him.
No, I haven't watched it. I just saw the thumbnail. And,
Yeah, this over on the This Is Opera side, they have really bad really poor streaming quality right now.
Yeah.
Very poor. Serious issues that need attention. Very low bit rate.
Okay, so
Anyway. So, where are you? I clicked away and now I can't find. Okay, yeah. So, thanks for joining me, Tony. And if you're looking for Tony Linka, then back up in this live stream or go up into the chat. There's a link to his website. We did some really cool stuff with his extended IPA chart. And remember that some of those sounds are Tony's own sounds that he invented, and you're not allowed to use them unless you pay Tony. So, yeah. Or you can pay, actually, I bought the sounds from Tony. You can
spreading
pay me.
my ideas.
And now that Tony's sounds have been on here, I own them. And so you can also buy them from me.
Yeah, but
So,
then
yeah.
it's kind of like the idea of that particular vowel is like an NFT, where it's like I can actually just copy it. You can pretend it's worth more because you own it, but I can just use it. You can do
It's
anything against
It's
it.
an NFS. It's a non-fungible sonorant.
Yeah. And then, interestingly, if I whisper it, it's not even a non-fungible sonorant anymore because there's no voicing. So we can have vowels without voicing.
Right.
And just like I know we already said goodbye, but it's like the IPA doesn't really have a good way of transcribing whispers because whispers
Aha.
are de facto no vowels. I mean, you could say there are unvoiced vowels, but
Right. They
why
have
doesn't anyone care about whispering?
their secondary. They're using a different source. That's right.
Technically, they're consonants,
Maybe-
vowel-shaped consonants, or
Yeah.
unvoiced vowels. But then technically, their unvoiced vowels aren't vowels.
Or they could be. You could just start from the bottom and say that when you're whispering, it's not a vocal tract, it's a whisper tract.
Yeah, I mean, there's all these voice quality symbols that you then can combine with the IPA, so they kind of merge two different.
Right.
So technically, whispered
The
vowels
whisper
are
tract.
vowels, but like the definitions are really wonky because
Right.
you could say a vowel is just
But they're vowels that you make with your whisper tract, not with your vocal tract.
yeah.
Right.
If you don't have vocal folds, you have to burp making these vowels. So we
And
have another symbol of indicating that.
And if you use your whisper tract, then is it important not to use your swallowing muscles?
Oh, digrastic.
The digrastic. All right.
Okay, so I guess
So-
the constructive part is over.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Oh, what happened? What happened to? Oh,
Body. The energy extends past your limbs and becomes fire.
yes. And also, good night. All right, so thanks for joining us on This is Opera, and tonight's guest was Tony Linke. We did some corrections on my phonetics from the last Hint on Singing with Manuel Garcia. So join me next time. I'll be reading another section from Hints on Singing, and or watching some more videos. I think since yesterday went so well, we're gonna go through this whole duet from Otello, sort of phrase by phrase. Oh jeez, 1 second, guys. He can sense that it's the end, and he's getting very anxious. You want to lick the microphone? Don't lick the microphone. Okay. So goodbye from me and the sidekick, who still needs a name. If you think you've got name suggestions for my sidekick, write them to therealmropera@gmail.com. And you can also join me there for some voice lessons, but I'd rather see you in person in Berlin starting this winter. Good night.
The straw.
It's just a straw, right?
It's not just any old straw. We've sized it very particularly, you guys.
So the SMBT Straw Pro comes with a minimum of 40 resistance configurations in one device.
And then we have two straws that are the exact same size, diameter, and length. And this is so that we have options.
After you've practiced the exercises for maybe 5 minutes,
you'll see here that the vocal cords aren't in sync with each other.
You have to put more work within the body to just get things going because the straw isn't providing you with enough.
It is very important that you let no air escape around the straw between your lips or through your nose.
But the thing is with that, it cuts off the nasal resonance part of singing, which is very important to singing.
It's almost as if you're trying to release it out through the straw to whatever's in front of you.
You will find when you go back to normal speech that your voice seems to be coming out of your eyes instead of your throat.
If you are splashing yourself, you're creating volcanoes, and that is not allowed.
A wise man once said, "There is a sucker born every minute."
No, 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 no. Oh, hell no.
So just grab a straw.
For those of you who talk several hours a day and your voice gets tired, here's a tip to keep you talking. Press your voice like this